Good morning, everyone. I'm Chef Susie from Escoffier Online. Welcome to our live session today. Today we're going to be doing one session, which is a part of a five-part series on breakfast pastries. So today we're going to be making danishes, and then we'll have 4 more sessions after this, which will include coffee cakes, quick breads, scones, and croissants. So knowing that, let's get started on our danishes. So I made some Danish dough last night. It's nice and chilled. I did all of the folds. This is the Danish dough recipe, which you can find in the recipe database. If you have any trouble locating it, be sure to let me know. Just a basic Danish dough. It's a yeast-raised sweet dough, which is laminated, which means adding layers of fat into the dough, which are going to create a lot of flakiness and some flavor, similar to the puff pastry. That's one of your assignments, although the puff pastry is not leavened with any yeast and is not sweet and enriched with eggs as well, like this dough is. It's a little bit lighter, but still it's the same idea. The butter in the layers is going to melt. It's going to create steam, and it's going to create all of the flakiness and the great flavor in these doughs. So knowing that, let's get started. So one of the keys to these doughs, if you're working in a warm kitchen, is keep them as cold as you can because they typically warm up easily. I just pulled this out of a really cold refrigerator. It was setting all night, and we're going to roll this to about 1/8 of an inch thick. So I prepared the dough because we're going to be showing the technique of actually forming the Danish. And does anyone have any questions so far? Okay, I've got my board well floured. Just using some all-purpose flour, especially if it's warmer in your kitchen like it is in here. You're going to want to use a little bit extra flour, and you can always just brush it off with your pastry brush. You have a dry pastry brush handy. There's also some really nice brushes that are kind of bench brushes, and they're a little bit longer. They're about this long. These are great if you're making larger batches in a commercial kitchen. So these danishes, they're nice to make at home or in the commercial kitchen. We'll be going over a few tips, but first let's get our dough rolled out. If you're working in a hot commercial kitchen, you're going to want to do a small piece at a time, maybe just a little bit bigger than this one or even this size, because it's going to warm up. The butter is going to start to melt, and as soon as you start working this dough, it could get really sticky on you very fast. So you can use this for a variety of danishes and shapes and sizes. You can even use this dough for coffee cakes. And you can use this for cinnamon rolls. In our assignment, we did basic bun dough for our cinnamon rolls, which is not a laminated dough. And that's just fine for the cinnamon rolls, and you can even add something a little more flaky like this. So do we have any questions on anything so far? I've got plenty of flour on my surface, so I really don't want any sticking with this. Once it starts, that's it. The dough is nice and cold. I can feel the coldness. It's perfect. These doughs also freeze well. After you do all of your folds, you can wrap them in pieces, like for example, the size that I had here when I started. You can wrap these, put them in the freezer, and then before you're going to be using them, you can take them out like the night before. If you're maybe in a commercial kitchen, you have a small bakery, you want to make danishes in the morning, you don't have time to make a single batch of dough every day, so you're going to make a large batch, maybe divide it in 6 pieces, wrap it well, pop it in the freezer, and then just take those pieces out the night before you're going to roll them. They'll thaw perfectly in the refrigerator. It's going to be nice and cold for you when you come in to go ahead and make your danishes. So I've got my dough rolled out. We're going to go ahead and form a few different things with this dough. And do we have any questions so far? Does everyone have their coffee and tea for our breakfast series? Because we're going to be doing this for the next few weeks. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's the start of our days, start of a lot of bakers' days. They start like sometimes at 2, 3 a.m. making their danishes. So let's go ahead and make a few things here. Okay, I'm just going to trim this off and save these pieces with some of my scraps. Okay, well the first thing that we're going to make, we're going to do some cinnamon twists with our dough. This is a pretty easy thing to do. Just going to cut a strip of dough, and we have a question.
How long can you freeze the dough for, Chef?
The question is, how long can you freeze the dough? I usually keep mine in the freezer for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the most, because you never know. This is a yeast-raised dough, and it's not always necessarily the dough itself. It's what could be happening in your freezer if you're working in a hot kitchen. There's people in and out of it. That temperature could be going up and down. Keep that in mind when you're storing things in the freezer. I'd say 2 weeks is absolutely perfect. It'll give you a chance to get ahead on things, and it's a good way to start producing things to kind of start working out of your freezer. You don't want to put your fresh baked products in there, but you can certainly do your prepared doughs, get them ready, pull them out, form them, bake them, then you have super nice fresh baked goods, and you'll be very productive as well. Okay, so back to some of our cinnamon twist. I've got some egg wash that I made earlier. I just made this with just a few eggs and a little bit of water. I'm just going to brush it on my dough. You're always going to be using egg wash when you're making cinnamon rolls. So if you're cinnamon rolls or Danishes, anything like this. So if you're planning a day where you're going to be making a lot of these, you might want to make a little bit extra egg wash. Like depending on your production schedule, if you think you're going to use a quart or two for the whole day, go ahead and make it in the morning. Put it in the refrigerator as you're not using it, and then you don't have to stop and remake it. Okay, so I've got some cinnamon sugar that I'm just going to be sprinkling on this dough for my cinnamon twist. And do we have any questions on anything? Okay, so I'm just going to be folding this over, and then I'm going to be cutting some strips, and we'll be rolling and forming these. Super common thing to do. Going to make a few Danishes with these. Nice flavor as well. Okay, so we have our dough strips. So we're going to pull this out a little bit, and then we're going to twist this so it swirls around. So I've got my right hand twisting up and my left hand twisting back, and this is how you create the twist. And you can kind of smooth it out a little bit, and be careful not to pull on this too hard because it will snap on you. Just do a little bit at a time. And we have a question.
What is the ratio of cinnamon to sugar?
The ratio of cinnamon and sugar is the question. It's how you like it. I like mine a little bit stronger. I usually do 2 parts of cinnamon to 1 part of sugar. And also another nice ratio would be 1 part cinnamon to 2 part sugar for a little bit lighter. I made mine a little bit stronger. So Chef Susie likes cinnamon a lot. Okay, so I'm twisting this, and it's starting to get a little bit sticky because it's warm in here, so have your flour handy. You can even put this on a sheet pan, put it back in the refrigerator if you need to. If it's just getting too sticky for you to work with, just put it away for a little while. So there's no use in continuing. Okay, so now that I've got my strips swirled, I'm just going to start the center, and then I'm just going to be bringing this around. Don't roll this too tight because it's going to expand during the proof. And then you just tuck the bottom under and put it on your prepared pan. So you can really just spend an hour or even hours doing these Danishes if you have to make a lot if you're in a commercial kitchen. If you got to do 200 or 300, you'll just be twisting and rolling for a very long time, but it's very relaxing. Baking's really good for you. It makes you feel good inside. You're making things with your hands, so have fun with it and don't stress out about your baking. It'll turn out in the end as long as you followed your instructions. Okay, so I'm twisting around and I'm tucking this in. I'm twisting with both hands. I'm kind of smoothing it out a little bit. Make sure you have plenty of flour handy. And these are going to be our cinnamon twist. Then we'll make a few more shapes and we'll start filling some things as well. Do we have any questions so far? Okay, so you can even do these strips swirled like this without any cinnamon sugar if you don't want cinnamon swirls in your danishes. You can also do like a little bit of almond filling as well. So be creative with these. Have a lot of fun with your baking. It's going to bring you a lot of joy in the years to come. Okay, so let's make some other shapes. Okay, we're going to cut some squares that are about 4 by 4 squares. I'm going to be doing some spirals and some pockets. Okay, so what we're going to do with these two is we're just going to fill these with some jam filling, and we're just going to do a simple fold. What you want to do though is you want to dampen your corners so they stick. You can either use a little bit of egg wash or water works just fine as well. I've got some egg wash here, so I'm using this. And I've got some filling that I'm going to be using. It's just some raspberry handy pack. You can make your own filling. That's fine too with fresh jams. What we're going to do is we're going to bring our one side in and pinch it over and then pinch over our second side. I've got these all going on, excuse me, the same tray now because I'm just making them to show you the technique. However, you're going to want to keep like sizes together on your trays. So keep that in mind. If you got some bigger things like this, you might want to have them on their own trays. Okay, so now let's make some spirals with this as well. The spiral is easy. You're just going to be making the square. And then you're going to cut the corners, but not all the way to the center. So it's got to stay together somehow. And then we're going to take our egg wash again, and we're just going to egg wash every other corner because that's a corner that we're going to be pulling to the center. So you're just going to pull your corner to the center, press down with a little bit of a pinch. If it gets stuck sticky, just use a little flour. And you're going every other one to create this spiral look. This is super cute. Your friends and family will be impressed if they see you putting out some danishes in this shape. So I like to press these down in the center a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and put this on our baking tray. Okay, so next we're going to be creating a pocket. I'm going to roll this dough just a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to go with that same 4 by 4 size. You can make these smaller. You can even make them a little bit bigger if you're offering maybe some jumbo danishes or even minis. So the size is completely up to you. So for our pocket, we're just going to dampen our corners because we want these to stick together. And our pocket's going to be filled with a little bit of cheese filling. It's going to be a little bit of cheese pocket. And what we're going to do is just fold these centers in. So I'm sticking them together, press them a little bit. Sometimes they open, and that's just the beauty of the Danish, but typically they'll stick for you. And there you have a nice pocket. So we have a few different shapes. Go ahead, try these shapes, and if you need some ideas for some other shapes, be sure to give me a call or send me a message. So please make some danishes for breakfast, and you have your recipe right in the recipe database. It's easy to make. It's a nice laminated dough, and there's a recipe video that goes along with it. So you should be just fine making the dough. Okay, so let's go ahead and get these danishes finished. I want to clean off my board a little bit first. Okay, now we're going to talk about finishing these. Okay, so we've got our danishes prepped and ready to go. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to be filling these and we're going to be egg washing them, getting them ready to go in the oven. With our little spirals, I always like to make a little indentation so the filling goes in rather than going out and running off of the Danish. So you can either egg wash this before you put your filling in or after. I usually do mine after. So we're going to go ahead and grab some filling here. We're just going to do our basic raspberry. And then we'll do a cheese as well. Okay, next we're going to be filling our spiral. We're just going to put a little bit of filling in the center, either apricot or almonds. Really nice for this. I've got a little bit of apricot. We're going to go ahead and put that in. Okay, so now we have some nice, almost finished danishes. Does anyone have any question? We've got a nice variety of shapes and sizes here and flavors as well. So there's really something for everyone. Next, we're going to be doing some egg washing and we're going to be going around these fillings, and we have a question.
How did you make the cheese filling?
The cheese filling is just a convenience product that I bought. There's a lot of cheese filling recipes out there. Send me an email. I'll be happy to send you one. So cheese is always nice with the danishes. So I'm just carefully egg washing around. I've got a little raspberry. It's been known to happen. Okay. So on the cheese Danish, I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon sugar just to give it a different effect. You can also do some streusel topping, even some nuts or some chocolate chips on top of these as well. So don't be afraid to try different things. Okay, next we're going to be egg washing. And just take your time in your egg washing. Go around your fillings carefully. And the egg washing is going to help with the browning in the oven. It's just really going to bring these back to life when they're in the oven baking. So next I'm just going to egg wash my spiral. And then we're going to leave these proof. If you have a proof box, that's great. Otherwise, you can room proof them. And keep in mind with your proof, you're going to be waiting until these double in size before they go in the oven. If the danishes are underproofed, they're going to be rather dense and heavy and doughy inside. So you want to give them a chance to rise up so they're lighter. They're going to be more flavorful. So just put them aside somewhere, and just a general rule of thumb, just watch for them to double in size. Typically this is 20 to 30 minutes depending on how warm your kitchen is. So just keep a close eye on them. You can also make these, form them the night before, put them on sheet pans, don't egg wash them, pop them in the refrigerator, pull them out in the morning, go ahead and finish them with your egg wash, your cinnamon sugar, and your streusel, whatever you're doing. Go ahead and proof them and bake them perfectly nice. It's a good way to be very productive. Get some of your prep done the day before, especially if you're opening a bakery early in the morning. You can go ahead and form these the night before. They'll be perfect. Pull them out, finish them, proof them. Nice. Okay, so I've got some streusel topping that I'm going to be sprinkling on top of my little pocket here. This is nice. It's going to add some extra flavor and some nice crunch. Okay, so my danishes are finished. They're ready to be proofed, and then they're going to be baked until they're a nice golden brown color. Do we have any questions on anything? Please try the danishes, try the recipe from the database. Let me know how you like it. So be sure to dazzle your friends and family. Okay, so this morning I baked some danishes that I formed last night. I pulled them out, I finished them, I proofed them, and I baked them. And I have them here. They're a nice golden brown color, pretty similar to the sizes that we made. We had a little bit of opening. We'll just have to make sure I pinch it a little bit better next time. My packet opened a little bit, and this little guy. But my spirals look great. Keep in mind with these spirals, rather than doing a square, you can do the same thing with a round cutter. It'll soften it up and make it more of a rosette too. So try that as well. Okay, so our next step is putting some apricot glaze on these, because apricot glaze is another thing that's going to bring your baked goods to life, whether it's a fresh fruit tart or these danishes here. You're going to brush it on, you're going to see them come to life. It's going to give them a nice gloss almost. And two, this is going to help preserve these a little bit. If you have a bakery or if you're making these at home, and maybe they're sitting out at home or they're sitting in your bakery case from the early morning until the afternoon, it's going to help keep them soft and moist. So be sure you're doing this. It adds a little bit of flavor, it adds some nice gloss, and it helps preserve the item. And we have a question.
2 questions: temperature and time to bake, and what ingredients are in the streusel?
The question is the temperature and time to bake the danishes. These baked for about 20 minutes, but be sure whenever you're putting anything in the oven to keep an eye on them. And you're going to bake these at a little bit higher temperature so they brown on the outside and they're not getting dried out on the inside. So you're going to be baking in between, typically most recipes are in between 385 and 410. Use the recommended temperature on your recipe, but it's usually going to be a little bit higher. It brings that yeast up and it gives the danishes a nice brown and a crust on them without drying out the inside. And another question is the ingredients in the streusel topping. There's so many different kinds of streusel toppings. Find one that you like. The one that I have today is just a butter, flour, sugar with some cinnamon and vanilla. And you'll also find recipes that include the almond flour, which we used in the Viennese butter cookie assignment, that gives the streusel a nice crunch when it's baked and a super nice flavor. If you need some streusel recipes, just let me know. I can help you out. We can find one that works for you. Okay, so let's apricot glaze our danishes and we'll see the difference. So you can see this is enhancing the color. It's giving this a nice shine. It's just making it look fresh. And like I said, it's helping preserve this. If it's going to be in your bakery case all day, it's going to help to slow down some of that staling. Besides looking good as well. And do we have any questions on anything? I'm just kind of going around these fillings. Sometimes you're just going to catch it in there and smear them a little bit, but it's going to go unnoticed. It's bringing this one. This is the cheese one that I put a little bit of cinnamon sugar on. It's kind of bringing that one to life as well. You can also glaze over the streusel topping, or you can leave these as is. They're perfect either way, whichever is the way that you want to serve them. They look nice before they're glazed and after as well. So keep that in mind with the streusel topped danishes. Okay, so now that we've got our apricot glaze on our danish, we're just going to go ahead and finish this off with a little bit of white icing. I just took some confectioner sugar and I mixed some hot water in it, and I just made a simple loose icing that we're just going to be drizzling over the top. You can flavor these icings as well if you want to put a little bit of lemon zest or orange zest in them, just for something a little bit different. That's great too. Remember, your baking is uniquely your own and it's a reflection on you. We're showing you techniques, guidelines, giving you recipes, but in the end, you're going to really be making your own variations. So let's put some icing on our danishes and they'll be finished. I'm just taking a fork. You can use a spoon with holes in it, especially if you're doing like maybe 15 full sheet pans. You can take a spoon that has holes or slits in it, put your spoon in, and then just go over your danishes. It's going to go a little bit quickly. And there's also some things that are called a fondant gun, which are kind of a funnel with an opening at the end, which are good for doing things like this. Now we have some finished danishes, and we have another question.
Do the danishes cool completely before they're glazed?
We have a question. Do the danishes cool completely before they're glazed? They can be a little bit warm, just barely warm before you glaze them. But yes, cool them all the way. You don't want them hot because the glaze is not really going to stick. It's just going to run off for you. So not hot, a little warm, like lukewarm is fine, or completely cooled off. So these are our danishes for today. We're going to go ahead and put them on a plate. We're going to be saying our goodbyes. If you got any questions before we wrap up, be sure to let me know. It was fun doing breakfast pastries today. Next week we're going to be doing coffee cake. We'll be having some more fun with the dough, and we're going to be showing some other techniques. So if you have any questions, let me know. You can email me as well or give me a call anytime. Keep up the great work with your assignments. You guys are doing great in the program. Let me know if I can help you in any way. So make some danishes for your breakfast next week. And we'll see you and have a wonderful weekend.